Hello, everybody, and welcome to this duo chat meeting where we're going to be speaking about threaded conversations and the iteration 2 that we have planned on this milestone. Let me just quickly grab the screen and open the issue so we're looking at the same thing. This is what we have on our plates for planning now. It is pretty well defined at this stage when it comes from like a product and UX perspective. From a technical and an engineering point of view, we have a lot in front of us. So that is where we currently are at. I hope everybody's already familiar with the screenshots you can find in here. If not, feel free to click around. And Mark, thank you very much, already has some issues created yesterday, which are yeah, very much top
Yeah, very
level.
basic. So
All
yeah,
good. But yeah, that is what we want to discuss today. That is probably the best starting point. Is there is a lot of front end work to do. There's a lot of back end work to do. If we can define and agree, basically a pretty much the defined API contract, then we know we're all on the same page. And in best case, we can even synchronize work, and that might be for another day. But that then we will know about the playing field. So regarding the agenda, key features that we're looking in, yeah, list multiple conversation. This is something we're gonna have to build. The issue is pretty basic. So enhancing this is definitely something that we need to do. Create new conversation, delete existing conversation, and there is one more thing that I just found out yesterday evening, which is basically, I have no idea yet where this logic could live. So it is going to be about this list at the end of the day, or mostly about this list item. So this will represent a conversation, but in the designs, obviously, this is just a placeholder. In the description, there is something around this where it says what not to expect from iteration 2. The title of a conversation shown in the conversation list will not be generated by an LLM, will be simply truncated, will be a simply truncated version of the first question. So that is also something that we have to discuss and that I not see in the issues yet, or like in the payload, is basically where is this truncated version coming from and where does the logic live that will be doing the truncation.
I think
I
like a backend can
assume.
trans. Sorry, please go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I assume it will be part of the list API, just including like the truncated version in each of the item. Yeah, sorry, Xinya.
Uh, my I'm under the impression that we should backend just transparently pass provide the information to frontend. So like if frontend pokes the list thread API, this will likely be our GraphQL API. Then like backend just give the first user role message as is, no truncation. So I would prefer frontend that has this truncation logic. The reason is that it's, I think it's more trivial to change the logic. For example, like a VS Code extension could have a different UI, which means like probably different const value for that the limit and truncation limit. Then maybe like it varies per UI, and if it's shrunk, if it's expanded
Yeah.
away to shrunk, then maybe like the number will be differ, and that might will be different. So yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah. Yeah, good call. I'm a little on the fence. I do agree, Shinya, and CSS is very good at truncating text, adapting to the UI, so we should leverage that. that is easy to do. It can become tricky, or we maybe have to find a workaround for very long prompts. I'm kind of afraid of misbehaving users in a way. So if you have a prompt in the size of like a book, and we're giving this over the wire multiple times, then it kind of can become a annoyance depending on how much the or how long the list will be. But yeah, maybe somewhere in between. Like maybe we can we can come we can define a character amount that we know is gonna be enough, whatever we do. 2,000 characters or something, then the backend can just truncate, doesn't even have to check for words, just like a hard cut, basically. And we know we are safe with that, and then the front end can do the rest of the shiny truncation.
Uh, I think like mm, does it make sense to have a truncation logic in two places?
Um,
So like I was just worried about like which value when we have a UX issue, we would be confused like which value we should change. Like for example, if we change the value in the front end code base, then like that could end up like we need to also change the backend part. And it sounds like it seems pretty straightforward to have this logic in a front end side. Um, and then like also I think like we don't need to worry about pretty edge cases. Like when user prompt is pretty big.
mhm.
I think this could be um I think this could be follow up.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
I'm
personally don't think that happens that often.
I'm
So
with you on that. Like the point I made is arguably like a performance optimization, and maybe we should do that if when we figure that this is actually a problem we're running into, then we go fix it, and not fix it on the very first instant. That does make sense. Sweet. Let me just put this in the agenda real quick.
And also, I requested edit cases, so um, we could write the note for you later.
Yeah, please, everybody, and go edit the agenda. You're very welcome to contribute on this. Awesome. Some open questions around this. The issues above that Mark has already created. We already spoke about that. They're at this point rather basic. What are they missing to be ready for dev? What I would love to see is that we actually have some defined payloads where we getting in. I don't think they have to be final anytime today or whatnot, but that we start to work on those. So what do you think about that?
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I should have thought about that. So okay, then I guess I'll just look at the screenshots and list the attributes which will be needed, and then maybe if I missed anything, you could add it to a list um, too. And going
Sound
back
good?
to the title, I
Hmm.
assume that for each of about the title for each of the threads, I assume we will just send the first message of the thread, right? that's needed for the title, but the only other messages are not needed for creating the title, right?
I lost you on the second one, on the last point. Like yet the only the first prompt of a conversation will be needed for this title. Yes. But you said something more. I didn't catch that.
Oh, I want to say that we don't need to include uh, any other messages after the first message for the
Yeah,
listing
yeah.
API.
Yeah, for the part that we are gonna for the list view where we're gonna do the truncation on, yes, only the first prompt.
Right. So I think we could just have a virtual attribute called title, and it will be outputting the first message. So in the future, if we ever plan to have a proper uh, summarized title, you can use the same attribute and you don't have to change the front end in the future.
Sounds great to me. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Sweet. Before we go on with other open questions, do we want to quickly go through the existing issues and see if anything comes to mind, or are they?
Hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Sweet. So what do we got?
Yeah, by the way, Mark, you created the 3 issues about the, GraphQL API. Feel free to assign me. I think like I have a merge request to add a thread ID to GraphQL extra mutation, and I think I can follow up in these issues. Sorry, please go ahead.
Okay,
Okay.
no worries. Create conversation thread in GraphQL. So just the create conversation will actually be there to create a new conversation feature that we currently don't have yet. Let me find the screenshot. So from a user perspective, this is going to happen basically here. So this is the list is completely unrelated to that. It's gonna be a mutation for a new thread at the end of the day. User should be able to create a chat thread, create the mutation in GraphQL to create a thread belonging to the user. So far, so good on a very top level for me. What I'm still struggling to get my head around, and I feel that you folks already have an idea around this, is basically, Shinya, you just mentioned thread ID, is like if I don't think about a specific mutation for now, but if I think more about the whole user workflow, like as the consuming part of this data, how will I be making the distinction at the end of the day? Like I'll get a prompt in and then I gotta know which conversation this applies to in a way. So thread ID sounds good, but I'm missing some information around this. Like, is this idea already there? We don't have that yet implemented, do we?
So this is mainly discussed in iteration 1, which
Okay.
is not complete. From my perspective, it's like 50% done. So it's,
Okay.
we are already talking about iteration 2, which sounds crazy. So
Okay.
I totally understand that like you're confused here. So thread ID, yeah, the detail is described in iteration 1. I will ping you in my merge record so like you can get some idea about that. But thread ID is kind of similar to similar encapsulation about user or project or these entities. Thread ID thread is a entity for that represents or one thread that user owns. Then basically through these new APIs, you can interact with our specific thread by specifying thread ID, more specifically GraphQL global ID.
Mhm.
For example, when you we have an AI action mutation GraphQL, and then when front end, let's say VS Code extension, send a message to GitLab backend, then like it specifies some resource ID, like
Mhm.
project. No, not the project, the context. I think that no
Yeah, merge
resource.
request issue, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, resource.
yeah.
And then like this resource, what is specified here is a global ID, like a GID dot
Mhm.
slash slash. Yeah. And then similarly, you specify like thread ID in this message so that like a backend can figure out that like okay, this action mutation is meant for this particular thread. So like the message is added there.
Mhm.
Mm.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thanks for clarifying. It does make a lot of sense on the high level. I don't have all details yet, obviously, but that also means for me, at least for this discussion now for iteration two, we can kind of read this as a solved problem. Like there is, we're working on this. There is a well-defined idea on this. We're working on this in another place, so we can kind of, yeah, consider this to be sorted at this point. Gotcha. Okay, so going back to the create mutation. Well, if the thread ID is figured, then Mark, please add a payload on this. Let us know how such a mutation could look like. But other than that, I don't have any more open questions. What about you?
Probably,
No.
probably we don't need this, isn't it? Like when user makes a new, like for example, like it doesn't make sense to create an empty thread, like no messages at all, right? So when user creates a new message, it requests to GraphQL AI action mutation, the existing one. So I don't think like we need to introduce like a create thread specifically.
That is,
Oh,
I think that's an interesting quirk. A very good point, and an interesting quirk on this screenshot, as if in like, this conversation is empty. So, being
Mm.
very strict here, the new button should be deactivated because in this stage there was no point in in doing that. Also, I'm with you, Shinya. Creating a new conversation for the sake of it doesn't make sense. Like this, like if we imagine that this would currently have an active conversation in there, user clicks new button, that's just a clear now. It doesn't matter. What matters if the client now knows, okay, thread ID changed. That is the important part. And on send of new prompt, we are now, okay, now we're going. Now we actually do have an active conversation. But yeah, very good point. Just the click of a new conversation, that's just clearing the interface, basically. The server
Yep.
doesn't care about that.
I think
oh,
so.
but yeah, I added this because of the button. Um, I
Mm,
Mm.
I was just thinking that for the front end, does the dual chart UI relies on a thread ID um to manipulate things? Um, if not, then we could use the existing logic. But since the button is there, um,
well, the
uh,
front end doesn't do anything with the thread ID at this point. So we are still
So
free
right.
to make any
yeah,
decision we need to.
like I was thinking that if we create a new thread by clicking button, like open new conversation, then like when user clicks, like for example, if user comes back from this page, like you do nothing, like create a new thread, and then like just click the cross button, then like do they see empty thread in the list? Like that's my
Give me
question.
the workflow one more time. I couldn't really follow. Like, so where's the user starting and what is he doing?
So like a user sends some message and then like
Mhm.
interacted with your chat, and then after that like a slash new conversation slash command and to create a new thread. Like okay, let's get start from the
Yeah.
fresh context, and then like but they change their mind like okay, I don't need to ask anything. So they just left, and then in this case, does this user see this empty thread or does not?
I
Probably not.
Yeah, so
um
that what I thought.
I gotta admit you lost me a little on the slash command because the slash command is not in the screenshots and we don't have that yet. Is that an important detail or could the user also use that button?
Okay, I think you should take a look at the iteration one. There's a issue about consolidate, reset, and clear slash command
Mm,
to the new conversation. I think that has a more expectation, but baseline should be the same, the behavior.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I'll check out the slash command in iteration one. But if we stay at the bottom for the moment, so user has an active conversation in here, clicks new conversation. This UI resets and old conversation. Well, it's always in the list. That doesn't matter. If the user now wants to go back to basically changes mind and goes back to the conversation, then user can click the go back here to the history and just pick it up, like without ever sending a prompt and without ever hitting this endpoint or this mutation. Does that answer the question?
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Then we indeed don't need this. Sorry.
One more time, Mark.
Oh, yeah, if that's the case, then I don't think we need this endpoint. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, we can just work with the existing and change the thread ID. Is that
Yeah.
or is there any pitfall that I'm currently not have not?
Well,
Um,
either way, this issue is pretty small. So I think like if it turns out we need it, and we can come back and we can just finish it in one day.
Yeah, gotcha,
oh,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
so I kind of recall the reason. It's because for the existing endpoint, we had to accommodate the behavior before we have the the idea of thread ID. So previously, if the front end doesn't send the thread ID, we'll automatically assume that the message should be added to the most recent thread. And if the front end sends the message with the thread ID, then we add the message to that particular thread. And now here, uh, if we don't have a thread ID, we could assume that we want to create a new thread, but that will conflict with the old behavior where we added to the most recent thread. Does that make sense?
I'll let Shinya go first. You would know much more about the thread ID.
I think you are worrying about the backward compatibility.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, if there's a edge case arise for the backward compatibility, we can come back to this issue.
Okay. Maybe I will type in words so it will be easier to understand. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Mark, could you update this issue and then maybe leave a comment and close it out. Just letting us know
Okay.
why we
Yep.
did that. Sweet. One more matter thing. I've scheduled this meeting for 30 minutes. We are at time. I have like 30 more minutes, but if anybody needs to drop, please feel free. And let's hurry up so we
I can
don't.
join. I can. Yeah.
Awesome.
Me too.
Yeah, I have to run. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna check the discussion, the recording then, and see what you come up with. Have a nice-
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Eva. Create new conversations. Okay. List multiple conversations. This is fortunate. Oh, this is rather straightforward, and this at the end of the day will be fueling the too many tabs. The list view, basically, like the thing where we just spoke about the truncation, where this is going to happen. This is what I mean. So yeah, the list view sounds good to me, and adding payload would be super beneficial. And also let's add the title so the client side can then truncate the thing.
If I add one point to this list thread GraphQL API, I think backend additionally should check the message count per thread, and then if it's 0, and then that's should be excluded. This is a kind of just in case if when we create the AI conversation thread in a GraphQL API, then like I said, probably we shouldn't show empty threads like mistakenly created some technical issue. Like it's kind of safeguard in the backend that shows presence only threads that contain at least one message.
Sounds good to me. Okay. Any more thoughts on the list issue, or do we want to carry on? Oh, good. Sweet. The delete issue, that is, let me quickly recall the issue. Maybe Shinya, maybe you know from the top of your head. I remember the both of us being involved in like the undo discussion. That is
Oh,
off the
yeah.
table. That is off the table now, I think, right?
Yeah.
It is
Seems so.
only okay, cool. So yeah, the client side will have some checks and balances, models, whatever, but one click we're gonna be like, okay, decision is made. The user really wants to delete this conversation. This is where we at. That is probably the the easiest of the endpoint, at least from a client side perspective. So thread ID being transmitted, and boom, there we go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So that's straightforward. Sweet. Cool. Any more open questions? Thread ID we spoke about, the issues we just spoke about. How do we need to modify existing mutations to make sure we update the right conversation? That is a complicated way of asking about the thread ID at the end of the day. It really pays on this. Like this is, or the thread ID is the answer to that for sure. And on the subscription side, which is the next question, I assume this to be the same. We will get responses. The response will have a thread ID, and the thread ID will have the information about where to put stuff on a very high level.
So I think this is the most complicated part in this epic. So how the subscription works in front end right now? I think it requests to GraphQL API, to subscribe an event, which is a WebSocket. And then, so for example, like, is it possible to subscribe parse thread, or frontend can only subscribe to GitLab instance level, so that, like, we need to include the thread ID in the response? That's kind of like first question.
Yeah, I'll try to give a condensed answer as I can. What we are struggling with at the front end at the moment, or front end and back end, there's an issue for that. I'll show you in a second. There is the GraphQL best practice on how you should implement something, and there is where we are currently at, and there is a mismatch between that. So let me first speak about what we currently have, because that is what we will most likely have to deal with here anyhow. So currently the front end is subscribing to the AI response subscription or something similar, the name of it. And at this point, you can basically imagine this, the subscription will.
Do you happen to know the arguments in this GraphQL API?
For the subscription?
Yes.
If you give me 30 seconds, I can find them. I just touched them yesterday. Or like we are subscribing at multiple spots, but I was just looking at one of them yesterday or Monday or something. Looks good. There we go. This is what I'm looking for. So here's the subscription, and this would be the variables. Is this what you're looking for?
Oh, yes. Resource ID. So sorry. That's a. Yeah. Resource ID, user ID, HTML response, AI response subscription. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. AI response.
And there is also an issue about the client subscription ID, and that's the thing that is not. There we go. This is what we're currently missing for a clean implementation. So let me stay on the status quo. Currently, the subscription it stays open for the entire user session, and it's basically just like a stream of data coming in, and the front end then taps in. This is actually a very bad example because we are looking at a bug ticket here, so this is problematic. Never mind that. But stream of data stays open, front end taps in, looks at the data, and then basically identifies chunk ID, resource ID, whatever you're currently up to, whatever you're interested in. And if the data that is coming in there is for you, then you go take it and update the interface on a very, very high level. That is where we currently are at. In the future, working with the client subscription ID, and that is also how this should work, is basically on every mutation. There is one subscription each, and then we close the subscription again. So basically, mutation is being sent, prompt is being answered, streaming in, getting full response, subscription stops right here. Next mutation, new subscription. That is where we need to go, and that will solve a lot of problems for us on the client sides, because we get rid of all the filtering that we currently have to do, because the subscription stream is just very noisy at the moment.
Hmm. Just a quick question though. Like for example, to just resolve this iteration two, does it make sense to include thread ID in the, alongside the chunk ID, resource ID, maybe user ID too, in the, current subscription pub substream?
I haven't completely thought this through, but from my knowledge today, I think it's crucial. Like if I when I'm waiting at the front end for a prompt response and I'll get one, I will have a resource ID and a chunk ID. Okay, cool. But how can I for sure know which thread this message is for? Because again, the subscriptions at this point are very noisy, and you could run into screenshots. You could run into mean edge cases. Basically, when we're looking at something like this, is user sends out a mutation on a conversation, goes back in history, goes back to another conversation, sends out another prompt. So we would have two prompts in parallel and then answers streaming in. And on the client side, you got to make the distinction between the threads there.
So I think like when user moves around, while because when users moves around, it's fine to terminate the subscription. I mean, like I know client frontend needs to keep the subscription. Just I mean, like when the thread or certain thread is reloaded, like user visited and then like ask a question and left someone else and they come back to there and then like we reload the front end full-fledged reload to actually not the subscription. It doesn't use subscription, but it uses the current AI. It's sort of AI message GraphQL API to fetch that all entire message for a particular thread. I think that's
the history kind of if you go back
I mean like
to
of course history too, but also like the currently generated response, what's being generated in the backend side, and then like the backend try to send the message to send the event to the front end or whatever subscribers. So sending an event and then like it's sort of find that front end misses it because like user went to someone else. But like the bottom line is that backend purges the history inside a database. That means like front ends can fetch it again even if it misses. Like so like when it has a word when something wrong, just like reload it, and then it should automatically resolve the problem. In that sense, like streaming response is best effort basis. If user stays in the thread, at least when user stays in the thread, it has to work. And then maybe like a more optimistic situation is like front end keeps thread IDs in memory, and then like when receives a chunk via the WebSocket, and then it also purges in something else and also memory, like maybe dictionary type, and then when user come back, then it presented the what's being streamed by backend in this particular thread, and then like when streaming ends, like it's reloaded anyway. I think like it already reloads hard reload after the streaming, isn't it? No,
reload after streaming, help me out.
I thought like the last memory What's
there you
that? Front end executes the AI message GraphQL API to get the complete the actually refetch the response after streaming ends.
Yeah. That is what it does. There are
Mhm.
two subscriptions, one for the streaming and one for the final answer.
Mm.
They work in parallel, and we kind of show the first thing we've got. In 90% that is streaming, but yes,
Mm.
that is absolutely right. Um, in short, yes, I do agree. I'm sorry. I think that is quite a lot of complexity for a whiteboard that we're currently looking on, and the jumping between conversation is also probably more of an edge case we can worry about when we get there and see
That's
that this
true.
is a problem,
Mm.
and not so much for the first iteration. But if
Personally,
we
I never visited the chat history, whatever ChatGPT or Anthropic used.
So yeah, but if we put the jumping between threads aside, going back to, do we need the thread ID on the messages coming back? Probably not, right? I don't really see a reason for it.
I think we need it. But first of all, adding thread ID in the response message is doable. Should be doable.
Okay.
Mark, are you with me?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Mm. Yeah, and then it's kind of from in my personal opinion, it's like it's up to front end how to cook it.
Yeah.
Mm.
It would, I can imagine a situation. Maybe let's put this down for the record. Please add the thread ID on the response. I can imagine of an architecture that can build this thing without the thread IDE on the response. But I'm at this point on the whiteboard pretty sure that having the thread ID here would make our lives very much easier. Maybe
Mm.
in the first iteration, and if not, then at least in the second iteration. So it feels a bit like a tool that would be nice to have here.
Mm. I agree.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so let's put the thread ID on the response. Any more open questions? Relevant UX thingy. Is there still something open? I feel like we already covered a lot of ground. Yeah, that is outdated. I offered these questions before I checked the description, so that was basically about the truncation again. So never mind that. This one's gonna be interesting. On a very high level though, and it kind of pays in on the backward compatibility that Mark mentioned. Release strategy for different clients on this. I haven't completely thought this through. What I think we are all on the same page, or hope, is that we need to avoid a big bang, like a big bang, as if in like probably not a great idea to update all clients at the very same second. So kind of an iterative strategy is the way to go, and is the reasonable approach here. For what I'm kind of or questions around that I'm having is, we gotta make sure our API design is completely backwards compatible, because we might be in a state where we now have 4 different host systems, and we might be in a state where like 2 of them are multi-threaded enabled, and the other 2 will get there in a week or something. So there is potential for a little bit of in between, and we will have to cover that.
Right. I guess we don't have feature flags for the IDEs, right? So
Mm, that is a great question, which I don't really know from the top of my head, but on one point we have, and on the other point, even if we don't have, we have like Duo UI, and we can work with props there, which basically then translates to variables where we can flip things off. So we for sure can make as many distinctions that we need. They might not, and maybe they are not called feature flags at the end, but we can make sure this variability is there.
okay.
So for me, from my perspective, very last sentence, sorry, is that basically we gotta make sure that even an outdated client side and the payload of it is still doesn't crash the backend. That is kind of the important thing. So let's imagine a scenario where we haven't updated VS Code yet on the client side. It will still fire out those old requests. The service still has to be able to operate like in a single thread thingy. That is the important part to me.
Yeah, I think like absorbing this backend compatibility is backend responsibility. Mainly should be dealt in there. Front end shouldn't need feature flags or some sort. Because even if we introduce feature flag, that doesn't mean like older clients are supporting this feature. In the iteration one, we carefully consider the API design for supporting all clients, even if it's outdated. Then that should work.
You mentioned that we don't want a big bang, so I assume we want to have feature flag controlled in the front end.
We will need control in the front end for sure. It might be feature flags. It might be like the Duo UI package is a distributed package, so we are just basically updating to another version. That is what I meant with the mechanism might have a different way. But yeah, we need some dynamic mechanism on the front end. Yeah, very much so.
Okay. When we say front end here, does it include VS Code extension?
Yes. The client side of the extension.
Okay, and the web UI, both.
Yeah, all of them.
Okay.
So yeah, let's say client side, that in this case that does make more sense, like basically everything that's not the server.
Sorry, yeah, I meant that. Yeah.
Okay.
I meant this case. Like if we just toggle feature flag on GitLab web UI, and then like that would be doable to introduce a feature flag because we have the work framework, like labeling the feature flag via GOM. But the VS Code extension doesn't have such convenient feature if I understand correctly. So I think like we should assume that front end the clients cannot use feature flag. That's the what I'm thinking about.
Yes, you're very right, Shinya. They can't use that. The idea or what we would want to achieve with a feature flag in the front end is to toggle something. What do you do with a flag? With Duo UI in place, basically how it would work would be that we would build both options into Duo UI, and then we would just hard code the prop in the VS Code extension to be false And whenever we want to update them, we would change the value, make another release, and that would be the toggle for the VS Code extension. It's not pretty, but that is yeah, kind of a feature toggle, you could call it. That is where we add with the extensions.
So those toggles are deployment. They are tied to one deployment. They are not tied to we turning it on at any time.
Yes.
Oh,
Other
okay.
than a feature flag. So we are lagging on comfort for sure there.
Cool. I actually have a question related to iteration 1. And it's also regarding how we introduce features in dual UI and the front end. And I think what you just mentioned now are somehow related. I would like to ask you about that now, but I think I need to go in 5 minutes. So maybe
all good. I can stay a little longer. Let's focus on iteration 2 for a second, so we have that off the table, and then go back to iteration 1 if that's okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So to any more questions around the feature flag and the toggles at this point around this?
Nope.
Okay, cool. So next step, and like to summarize our to-dos. Mark, if I understand you correctly, you're going to be adding the payloads to the issues that are already created. I'm happy to review them, and from a front end perspective, that is basically all I need. From there, I can then shape a lot of the issues that you folks don't really have to worry about and throwing like interfaces and components around. So from my perspective, once we have that, I'm all happy. That is all good to me. Any more open questions or something? Any red lights for you that I haven't mentioned regarding next steps at this point?
It's just I think most of the part I'm leaving Mark for the architectural decision. Yeah, like these issues, technical part. I'm mainly working on the implementation part, the merge requests. Just I want to say that if front end needs something, more specifically, if you are blocked by something, by missing the GraphQL API or something, please let us know. It's up. We will prioritize it at first.
Awesome, sweet. Thank you very much. I will come back to this. Currently, we're still at a white page, so there's nothing at this moment. Very last question around this, and what made me raise my eyebrow a little. As you can tell by now, I know a little about iteration 1, and I for sure don't know anything about the efforts and the progress around this. But from what I've just heard, like Shinya, you mentioned iteration 1 is around at 50% now. Regarding our planning issues and like expectation management with Thorsten. So let me pull up the planning issue. Like the realistic way is, if I get you correctly, you will have to the backend will have to finish iteration 1, and then there's like capacity or iteration 2, and the backend issues are unblocked. And once these are unblocked and finished, I can start. That is basically the workflow, correct?
I'm under the impression
it can be made in parallel. If we have the API endpoints ready for you, they will be I guess, experimental, which you can access, then it can be done in parallel.
So
Go.
I agree with that, Mark. That I think like we should work in parallel, because like I think that main outcome what product wants is iteration 2, not iteration 1. And then like if we completely block iteration 2 by iteration 1, that will be like that the deadline for iteration 2 is going to be really tight. And then there's a possibility that uncertainties will arise in the future, like something new functionality is needed, or we need to tweak the Graphql API. So like I think frontend should pursue the more like prototype or experiment, what Mark said, to build that what is closer to proposed by UX in iteration 2. Then like backend will work on that, like work on the issues to provide that all necessary tools to achieve it.
I'll tell you why I'm asking this in a second, and I promise I'm never gonna quote you on that. But do you like once we decided on the payloads, do you have like a rough idea from the client side when I can ping these endpoints and get a response? Like that can be experimental, whatnot. I don't untested. I don't really care about that. But I just want to have like a feeling. Are we speaking 2 days, 2 weeks, end of milestone? Where around is that?
I would assume maybe 3 or 4 days.
Okay,
And that's
cool.
on top of some of the blocking issue in iteration 1, which will be maybe, I think maybe 1 or 2 weeks.
Okay. No, just the reason why I'm asking is on the front end, I could come up and mock those responses myself, but and then basically work without any backend. But that will be quite a bit of work on my side, and I just want to avoid it to do that this week and then have the API ready days later, where you'd be like, okay, that wasn't the most efficient way to do that. So that is the only thing where I'm after. Like, does it make sense for me to start with mock data, or does it make sense to wait for the actual responses? But from what I now heard, and also given that we are at the very beginning of the milestone now, this should be okay.
I think that's totally reasonable. I also don't think like it's efficient to asking front end to create a mock data or seeding dummy data for building the front end feature. Backend can of course, like we push hard to implement the GraphQL API, but like it takes time due to the GitLab nature. And then like what we can offer would be providing you our merge request that has that contains all changes that needed for front-end the build stuff. So like at least you can develop the feature in your backend in your local JDK. That's probably that's the fastest. In the meantime,
sorry.
In the meantime, backend can do a proper review, like splitting merge requests and send for merge.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, and please don't feel stressed stressed by what I just said. I basically just wanted to point out, like I would have had concerns if I would have heard end of milestone or something, but a couple of days they don't really matter. And yeah, I'm more than happy to branch off any MRs. I'm also used to be working on the bleeding edge, so untested, kind of buggy. Give it to me. We'll see what we can do. All good. Okay, but going back to the agenda one last time. This also answers the question, should we speak about Thorsten again? At this point, we probably feel comfortable that we can deliver something that will make them happy by the end of milestone. That is at least my impression. Do you agree with that?
How many
I
weeks do
actually
you
think
have?
we should talk to Torsten
Okay.
because because about iteration one, I myself does not have a solid idea on how it might be scheduled, and I think Shinya, maybe we could have a meeting with Torsten together on sorting that out.
Okay.
Um,
To answer your question, Shinya, there is, I don't know about code cutoff here, but we would have at least 3 weeks milestone left.
3 weeks. 1, 2, 3. Oh, and then I'm gonna be 1 week off at the end of the January.
Oh yeah, true. Lunar New Year for me.
Okay.
Well,
One idea. What about we now go get together on the for about a day or two on the Epic and draft out those issues that we just spoke about in the last hour. Once we have that, we'll probably have a better overview about what we can achieve when, and it's going to be easier for us to make a cut. It's also going to be easier for us to speak to Torsten, being like, this is the buckets of issue. We can ship this milestone. We don't see that. Because currently we are still in a very vague phase where we'd be like, yeah, we can deliver something for sure, but we're not quite yet sure what. So that would make it more specific, maybe. What do we think about that?
Okay, yeah.
Sounds
I
good?
think um like cutting a scope to, for example, we support only web UI or something.
For example, yeah, I'm not too sure. Yeah. For that would be one of the possible solutions, yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Or any other idea on how to manage this best?
Yeah, I think there will be definitely. Yeah, I think that's necessary actually because all the other ID stuff will always be hard to push for progress.
The thing is that, like, all IDE part, I don't really know IDE, so like I'm just afraid of like all front end work going to Yannick. Like this IDE stuff, that's pretty much overwhelming. I assume.
Yeah, but that is okay. As if in a lot of the logic is kind of outsourced into UI, and we're only doing it once for once, and other things they might not even live in our team and actually be in the editor extension teams. But there again, it would be crucial to have those issues where we'd be like, Torsten, these issues are within our team. Here is where we need support from the editor extensions team. Let's go plan that in. We don't have that at the moment yet.
Yeah, so yeah, just in that sense, like I'm more inclined to the idea like we defer all extension support in the after the iteration 2 or iteration 3, making iteration 3 to support all editor extension or something. And then like we solely focus on web UI.
That could be a potential outcome. Yep. So issues needed and implementation. So next step, step one, let's commit to the payload contract and define them. Let's create all issues needed and implementation plans for backend and host systems. That includes web UI and extensions. And from there, let's cut scope from there. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yep. I think
Awesome.
yeah, sooner or later we need to discuss about the cutting scope.
Do we want to do this, or do we want to try to do this in an async manner, or should we like come together again maybe on Monday and discuss scope? What do you folks think?
Yeah, I prefer a sync meeting, but yeah.
I think yeah. I think at least we need to fill some issues. And then yeah, it makes sense to have a sync. I don't mind having using the next week. No, weekly call is usually like a pretty, rundown. So I think yeah, it makes sense to have a dedicated call with him.
Okay, cool. So let's get to but a dedicated call with Thorsten on this topic, like it doesn't require all of engineering to like we can include Thorsten in the next call, right?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. I'll schedule us something for Monday, maybe. What do you folks think?
Yeah.
I'm fine. Yeah, that's sounds
I'll
perfect.
say early next week. Let's see about the calendars. But yeah, sweet. Let's do it like that. Awesome. Cool. Folks, thank you so much for taking the time. This was super helpful. And then let's write out all the issues together. Ping me anytime when there are any questions around the payloads or whatsoever. But that sounds reasonable for now.
Thank you, Yannick, for
Sweet.
scheduling this
Thanks.
call. Yeah.
Awesome. Mark, you had another question about iteration 1. I still have some more minutes. If you still want to, I'm all good.
I need to leave, so
Okay, gotcha. Just ping me or whatever. I'm more than happy to help you out.
yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Cool. Have a good one, everybody. See you then.
Ciao.
Thanks. See you.